Hello, Admiral Thrawn here, and I'm recording a brand new preview video for Age of Petty Kings 2.0. Yes, it is back on. For those of you who have not been on Total War Center lately, or otherwise haven't heard, we have resumed work on Age of Petty Kings 2.0, and hopefully it will be awesome and stuff. I'm going to give you a quick map preview now, describe what sort of changes there are going to be in it. The settlements are all currently in. I might make a couple changes. The armies are not in place right now, so you can basically just ignore that completely. But I'll just sort of go over what's going to be happening in this mod, how it's going to be different from Age of Petty Kings 1.0, and just generally how the balance is going to look. So let's talk about Fog of War here. So let's start in Dorne. In Dorne, there's been some changes. First of all, House of Volmont is gone. After the release of The World of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin, basically he sort of laid out a lot of the different factions that were involved in this time period, and so the Volmonts, which I made up, were not among them, of course. However, I will be converting their UI to serve for House Dryland, which is one of the kings. There were kings who ruled this area here that was formerly held by House Uller in the original, in 1.0. This is now House Dryland's kingdom. They'll be using the Volmont UI because I like it and I don't want to make a new one. And yeah, they'll be fighting against Queen Nymeria and her assault here because this is going to take place during Nymeria's landing, when she landed a huge army of Rhoynar here in Dorne and then proceeded to take over everything. The Ironwoods have been nerfed quite a bit. They only have 4 castles. I might add an extra one just to balance it a bit more. But then also, big addition here is House Dane. This was one of the most requested factions for 2.0, and I can see why. They're pretty badass. They currently hold, technically they're an alliance of 4 different kings. Dorne had tons of kingdoms and all before the Nymeria's attack. And so this is an alliance of the Danes of Starfall, and then the Fowlers of Skyreach, I think Manywood of Kingsgrave, and whoever is from Blackmont. I'm forgetting their names. It's some king or another. But anyways, though, so basically it's these 4 different kingdoms that are all aligned together to fight against Nymeria. And yeah, well, you'll see if it'll work or not when you play, but yeah. In the Reach, I've added a lot of settlements, as you can see, and all. And I've done some rebalancing too. So House Manderley, for example, is not its own independent faction this time around. They're a subpart of the Gardeners. Instead, they've been replaced by House Peak, from Starpike, and they'll be ruling this whole big chunk here of the Dornish Marches and the Ashford area as well. And that combined with the Redwynes, who now have a much expanded arbor, and the High Towers of Old Town will basically prove the opposition for the Gardeners. The Gardeners are still the biggest faction by far, but with several different recruitment zones and whatnot. However, really their weakness here is one of geography. See, they're basically spread out in this big sort of column with holdings way up here near the Brackens and other holdings way down here near the High Towers and other holdings way up here near the Tarbecks. So they have the biggest kingdom by far, but it's very hard for them to hold it, especially if there's player factions next to them, or if you're attacking them or whatnot. So yeah, basically they'll still be a fun faction, and I might stop banning them from hot seats now. If you play hot seats, if you don't play hot seats, go check out hot seats. They're awesome. Just Google Westeros Total War hot seats. There's a lot of ones, not just for this mod, for other mods too. Anyways, a little plug there. So yeah, these are the factions. Also, you may have noticed the Shield Islands have been added here. One thing I've been doing is I'm adding these recruitment zones, like the Shield Islands, for example, where there's a limited roster available here that has a relatively low recruitment turnover. And so basically the houses of the Shield Islands, they will be able to recruit stuff here, but not very much. So really, this is not a terribly valuable set of islands for the Gardeners, apart from their strategic value in terms of blocking off the Mander and building ships. But beyond that, there really isn't that much use for them. So anyways, yeah, and that's on purpose. I don't want to have islands be as overpowered as they were last time. Anyways, that's the Reach. In the Stormlands, the one faction I'm kind of worried is getting overpowered now are the Storm Kings. In the original, in 1.0 that is, they only had 5 castles. Now they have 19 or something. So I think 11 or something crazy like that. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 castles, which is huge. And also they don't have that many natural enemies Their one disadvantage is they will not have naval superiority, which basically means that the Estermonts and possibly others can basically attack them at will. And I'm hoping that's going to help balance this out, because, I mean, otherwise they're going to just overrun the Estermonts pretty quickly. But yeah, so I think it makes sense, though, that there weren't that many other kingdoms in this area at the time, and plus the Storm Kings really were superpower at this point at all. They were able to conquer pretty much the entire Riverlands by themselves, and still have the forces left to be able to hold off the Dornish and the Reach. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see how this goes, but I think this should be balanced enough, and if it's not, then we can change it in patches or whatnot. The Estermonts are still here and all. They still hold both the Rainwood and the Narrow Sea. They also hold Gaston Grey, which they're currently using as a prison for pirates and whatnot. Yeah, and I just thought that would be a fun thing to add on, and I wanted to give them extra settlement, so yeah. In the Westerlands, same old factions, but I've basically buffed pretty much all of them, mostly because the Ironborn were way too overpowered last time and would just overrun the whole place instantly. So there's a couple changes I've made. First off, the Rains have gotten a lot of extra castles. The Marbrands of Ashmark have now joined them, and there's this nice little handy pass thing that lets them attack along the coast. So basically what this means is that, hopefully, if the Rain player is any good, they'll be able to use this location here to be able to basically strike back at their coast and prevent the Ironborn from doing too much damage along it if they attack. And the Lannisters could theoretically do that as well, honestly. If the Lannisters capture Ashmark, they'll be able to strike back on the coast as well. And so, yeah, one sec. Anyways, sorry about that. That was a quick interruption there for, video reasons. Anyways, as for the Iron Islands, I'll be nerfing Grey Iron significantly in several ways. First of all, I'll be making Harlawhold and Hammerhorn both be rebel factions to start with. Each island will have its own unique roster with the shields and whatnot of the houses of that island. But yeah, 2 of them will be rebels. This one will be a much smaller army for House Hoar. I think Hoar or Hor, I'm not sure which one it is. I don't want to say House Hor because it sounds like his Littlefinger's brothel. And then say the same for the Grey Irons up here. And basically, so the Ironborn will have to first conquer the islands, and it'll take them a while, and then they'll have to be able to, and then they can turn south to attack the Greenlands. And then also they will have to deal with an expensive building up of the navy and all. They're not going to start with a massive navy this time around. And they'll have much weaker initial recruitment possibilities. Anyways, as for the Breaklands, they're mostly the same as they were last time. I think it was pretty well balanced then. The only big difference is that, first off, I've replaced House Massey with House Bar Emin. Try to roll that off your tongue. That's mostly just a change from World of Ice and Fire, where George R. R. Martin laid out that House Bar Emin was the main house in this area during this time period. So yeah, this is not going to detract from the modern thing. I've also given the House Crab of the Cracklock Point an extra settlement here at Claw Keep, just because they were a little bit weak beforehand. And finally, I've also buffed the Darklands of Duskendale by giving them Hayford, an extra settlement here. Basically, what this will do is it will make it easier for them to hold off attacks from the Brackens, and it just gives them some extra economic base to be able to hold off attacks from over here, because historically they've gotten their asses kicked pretty often. But yeah, they're still pretty fun though. I mean, plus another upside of the Darklands is that they're designed so that basically their settlements are all within 1 turn of each other. So if the enemy attacks Duskendale, your army in Rosby can reach there, which I found is very useful in hot seats especially. So that's very nice. As for the Riverlands, it's probably the least changed region out there. I might add some extra settlements just to make it more balanced, but generally speaking it's already pretty full, so I didn't really do much to change anything. Yeah, that's about it. I added Acorn Hall. I think that was already in it, actually. So yeah, not many changes there, but a couple minor things. I added Lord Haraway's Town and Dawnhold. Dawnhold, as well as the Bastion down here, these are basically both settlements that I made up and added into this, mostly because there's a lot of castles that get torn down in the Game of Thrones universe, like White Walls, for example, during the 2nd or 3rd Blackfire Rebellion. And so it doesn't make sense that every single castle that existed 5,000 years ago exists currently in Game of Thrones. So I added a couple extra ones just, because they got torn down at some point over the years and their houses got wiped out. So yeah, I feel like that adds some more stuff. Also, I needed a settlement here just to balance out the whole there's nothing up here, and Mud should have some opposition here, apart from just, having to fight the Blackwoods. In the Vale, I've done not much down here. Wickenden is now held by House Royce, but the big changes are here in the Northern Vale and the Bight. So first off, I added a couple extra settlements here. The Arryns now have a colony here on their northern coast, New Keep, which is like an Andal colony that was created a little while ago. And the Royces currently hold Snakewood, which is a castle down here. So basically, the state here is very much in flux. Basically, the Arryns have there's sort of a patchwork of things. The Arryns have stuff over here and stuff up here. The Royces are sort of trapped in between Heartsholme and Nine Stars. It's basically a big mess right now, because the conquest of the Vale is still sort of being sorted out. As for these settlements here within the Bight, the Paps, Pebble Hall, and then the Three Sisters and whatnot. What I'm doing with these is they'll be rebel settlements, and economically they're mostly worthless. They have very few people in them, very little trade, very few resources, but they're strategically incredibly important if you want to be able to launch invasions of the Vale or the North. So basically, I've set it up so that House Arryn, Royce, Bolton, and Stark will basically all be fighting over them from the get-go, or else they'll be ceding a major strategic advantage to their enemies. And so the idea here is I want to sort of have a scramble over these worthless territories right from the start of the game. It should be interesting, mostly because I want players to scramble and, be in pain and stuff. Anyways, in the north, I've done a few things. First off, I've given Flint's Finger to the Destins, because I think that makes more sense than having the Muds down here who have to focus on the Riverlands have Holden's way up here for no reason. I've also given them a fair number of ports along their coastline, which I think that works with the lore better. There's ports here, there's a fishing village here that could be turned into a port, there's a port up here, a fishing village that could become a port. Because recall the Starks actually had a huge fleet here in the Eastern Ocean, and it wasn't until Brendan the Burner that it was destroyed. And they still have some ships here, from up in Bear Island and whatnot. And so, yeah, the Starks can actually contest naval supremacy. They probably can't gain it if the Ironborn fight them for it, but they can contest it at least. And apart from that, not a ton of changes. The Starks now hold the Wolf's Den, which will be held by House Greystark, which was around until they revolted alongside the Boltons, and that did not work well for them. The Starks themselves will have several different recruitment zones. They'll have the Winter Moors, which are basically Wolf's Den, Serwyn, Torrens Square, Blackpool, and Winterfell, and that'll be a lot of their heavy infantry, heavy cavalry, and whatnot. And then they'll have the Wolf's Wood up here, which is Mormont Keep, Deepwood Motte, and then the Wood Fort, which is, if you're wondering why the Mormonts are down here, not up here, that's because the Mormons didn't actually get Bear Island until much later. Well, actually not that much later, but until later. This is currently held by House of Woodfoot, I believe. And the Ironborn take it, and then the Starks take it back and give it to the Mormons. Anyways, so this will be a lot of archers, a lot of light infantry and whatnot. And then finally they'll control the mountain clans up in the north here. There's a lot of settlements, but they're generally pretty worthless economically, and they don't have a lot of recruitment options. But basically attacking it would be a huge pain in the ass, because you have to go through all these tiny passes, get ambushed all the time, and have to fight off these mountain clans. So it's a pain in the ass to invade, but it's not worth a whole lot in terms of manpower and whatnot. So I think that works balance-wise pretty well. And then finally, the Umbers will have a couple different recruiting areas. They'll have this area here that eventually becomes Carhold, but House Karstark hasn't actually been founded yet. That doesn't happen until later, so it's currently held by some other houses that got wiped out. And then finally, the area up here of Last Hearth. Skagos has been included. It will be here. It'll be rebels to start with, but the Umbers can probably attack it pretty early on and take it, and then other people can take it after that. It's one of those things that's sort of out of the way, but it's worth taking, just because, why not? It's hard to take it back from you after you've gotten it. And then finally, you have the Wall, and that was where it cuts off. Some of you may recall that the Wall was originally going to be in it, and it would have, the Night's Watch and the Wildlings, and it would, go all the way up north and whatnot. I've taken that out here because I felt it was becoming feature creep, and because I didn't really have the time to actually make a full-on good Wildling and Night's Watch roster, as if I was already working on everything else. Don't count it out of being in future expansions and whatnot, but for the time being, I'm just going to leave this the way it is, have the Night Fort here as just the Night's Watch Castle, which you could attack if you wanted to, I guess, but it's unwise. And yeah, that's about it. I'll also be rebalancing all of the rosters, and also I'll be doing a lot in terms of basically making them look a lot better, a lot less samey, and so hopefully that'll be good. You can check out previews on the Age of Petty Kings ModDB page, and I'll be posting more on there and also in the Total War Center thread. I hope you all enjoyed this video preview, and yeah, happy to say that we are back in business, and it's going to be coming along. Expect more previews soon-ish, kind of. Admiral Thrawn is signing off.